Good evening.
Good evening.
I love that during worship, our team doubles. It's amazing. You open your eyes, like, oh. For those who are in YouTube world, we've got a young adult team tonight, so. No, really cool. Before we get into the meat of tonight, and before Beck gives a couple of quick announcements, I want to give a real short budget report. A part of this is that our board had our first board meeting last Friday, which is really exciting, board meeting. And yeah, it was good fun. It's not as scary as it sounds. But we had our first board meeting, and not unfortunately, but got a couple of people here that heard this during our Lift Group Leaders training. But the board actually asked me to give a report to the team, just good practice for people to understand what's going on. So I just want to give a real quick rundown of what our 2016 budget financially is looking like and where we need to be going. So basically, we have set a target of $2,000 of income per week. That is something that for me is not beyond us at all. But not legally, I don't know what you call it, accountically. I don't know, what do you say?
Financially?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense though. But anyway, basically the board actually looked at our collections per week to date, and the way that the finance team looks at it is from the moment our bank account started, which is all the way back in June or something like that. And so weekly our average is $1,281 or something like that over the course of the whole year. And so they were actually a little bit worried that we are asking for that much. It's like there's an 80% increase in our giving. And I explained to them, and this is my logic in the way that I work. I feel like I'm Asian enough to be able to talk finances. But basically, over the last 4 weeks, we've actually averaged $1,900 per week, which is actually amazing. The last 4 weeks have been amazing in the income that has come through. So I'm believing that $2,000 per week next year is actually really possible. But $2,000 in my mind is actually to allow us to do a maintenance type budget. And so what I mean by that is that $2,000 is not going to allow us to go above and beyond. It's going to be quite conservative in what it's going to allow us to do. So to give you an idea of what we are spending on a weekly basis, we are probably spending about $1,750 just on maintaining our Sunday programs and all the stuff that we are kind of doing with lift groups, and all of that is going to come up to about $1,750, which means that per week we have $250 that allows us to either save up for some big events or whatever it is that we are looking to do. So with that, the whole year's budget basically looks, if we are getting $2,000 per week and our expenditure is about the same as well with what we're spending right now, it allows us to spend over the course of the whole year about $10,000 in our reach. That sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. For example, our Christmas on the Green event is going to cost us about $3,000 out of our pocket. The pop-up carnivals cost us about $3,000 for the 3 carnivals that we did. So we can maybe do about 3 or 4 big events through the whole year if we have a budget of $10,000, and that's really not a lot at all. And so what we are asking people, our team, to do is to continue, because I do believe that the team has really stepped things up over the last few weeks. We have chatted with a few people, not that we're ever in danger, but give regularly. Direct debits really help. One of the things to help you understand, we want to talk like this to you guys because you're part of the team. It's all in. The direct debits help us to have assurance that if we run an event like Christmas on the Green where we are closing on Sunday morning, is not going to hurt the church financially. It's actually a really big deal. Like most big churches will never close a Sunday morning because most of their budgeted income comes in through physical giving on a Sunday morning. And when we did the pop-up carnival and we closed that Sunday, it was actually really quite bad for us financially. But it evens out over time. So I don't want to paint a doom and gloom picture. I really struggle with having financial talks. Maybe 5 years down the road, I'll be like, yep, all good. But we're not struggling, but I'm just trying to show you what it means. If we are giving direct debit and we can see a pattern going, then at least when it comes to running an event where I feel like we should close a Sunday morning to allow us to do it, the board's not going to be breathing down my neck and saying, Nate, you're going to kill the church. And I don't want to be in a place where I have to be like, oh yeah, all right, cool. We can't do what we want to do, what we're planning to do because of these constraints. And so direct debits really help us out. And giving regularly just helps us to get into a flow of understanding where we're at. Like I said, the last 4 weeks have been really great, where we've been averaging about 1,900. But the 4 weeks prior to that, we were averaging I think just under 1,700, which means that we were losing about $50 per week on average, which is not good when you're digging into your reserves. But in the early stages of our church life, we know it's an investment. So at the moment, our bank has reserves of about just under $10,000, which sounds really good. But one of the other pastors kind of explain how this works. $10,000 in reserve is not really $10,000 in reserve, because big bills will come and you need to have those reserves put away to be able to spend, to pay for insurance bills, to pay for your big, higher costs for the building and all of that, because we do pay in one lump sum and it only comes out when the bill comes through. So for example, with one of the other churches, they had reserves of about $5,000 in the bank account. But even with that $5,000, the board actually said to that pastor, you've got 4 weeks to turn this around. If not, this church will have to be dissolved because we will not be able to pay the bills that are coming up. So that's just to give you an idea of that line, that as us as a young church, we have to be wary of where we're going financially. And it's something that I'll be honest and say this is quite new to me, and I'm still trying to find out how to do this thing well. So yeah, that's where we're at. But we're not in a bad spot, because the last 4 weeks, like I said, we've actually gone above. We're really close to being right on par at 2,000, which will put some money into savings, which allows us to do big events. So, and the board, well, our business manager said, hey, for this year, 2015, spend what you need. It's a start and you need to spend big. And Pastor David, who is our board chairman at the moment, he said to me when he looked at the budget that I set up, he said, you need to be spending more on outreach in the early part of 2016. You're not doing enough. And I was like, where are we going to get that money from? It's a bit of a faith journey for us. But he's saying, this is the catch that we find in the church. If we don't spend money to get the word out and people don't come in, our income doesn't grow and we go into maintenance. And that's why the $2,000 per week is a maintenance level for our church. It doesn't really allow us to get ready for things like a future youth group. It doesn't get us ready to really be able to feed the poor, to do all that kind of social justice stuff that I know for many of us we have on our heart. And so yeah, that's how it works. So what you can do is direct debits. That really helps. Pray. That really helps. We believe in the power of prayer. And the third thing is to look out for networks. If you know business people, you know people from our town that are actually wanting to be involved. Next year onwards, with our big events, we do definitely want to get sponsorships from our community. This year we haven't chosen to do that because it's really hard to talk to people about what we are doing where we have no idea what it's going to look like. It's like, yeah, we're doing this awesome thing. It's like, okay, so how many people are going to come? I don't know. It's like, yeah, sure, I'm going to trust you with money. No, you're not. So we're trying to do the wise thing by actually running it this year by ourselves, off our own backs. But next year onwards, we really want to start to use what we've achieved this year as a basis to get sponsorships in and to see what opens up. Some of the stories that we've heard from the other HarvestNet churches have been amazing. Murdoch Uni actually asked Freedom City to set up all the exam tables and chairs in the gym and pay them $2,000. I said, hey, it's fundraising for you. You get a few blokes in, put out some tables and chairs, and you get $2,000.
Easy. We move tables every week.
Absolutely. So that's the kind of networks that just pop up. It's crazy how it happens. So what I'm asking for all of us is that, if you hear anything that sounds like anything, just send it through. All right, we'll follow it up. We'll see if it works out. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. But at least we are doing what we can to get those funds in.
If we wanted to do more events and things like that, how much would the weekly budget look like then? I mean, instead of maintenance, like...
Yeah, sure. It's probably a hard thing to say. This is how my mind works. So to give you insight into me, I would rather set a conservative budget and spend within our means. And then if it shows that it's going to go way above, then we can put in the events later on in the year. So in the budget that I set out, we actually had $4,000 that I did not put in any allocation. So we are going to be looking at, and they've actually told me that I need to. So I'm going to be re-looking at the budget and spending $4,000 in Jan and Feb to try to lift out a little bit more. And it's not saying it must be an event. Maybe it's for us to actually get extra teardrop banners to extend our look along the Albany Highway. Maybe it's actually to do a direct mail out if you feel like that's what's the strategy.
Look into having a more permanent signage or something.
Yeah, maybe we'll look at what we can do. Yeah, or maybe some kind of banners that we can put up for stuff.
So there's also the option of like if you're gonna be getting into curtain or like uni stuff, there's also the option of lottery West. Because when I was doing the young adults in Centrepoint, Nick was talking about if we're doing a young adults thing and we're keeping people off the streets on Friday night. You're basically saying lottery West, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Come up with a report, things like that. We can actually
Lotteries is probably a little bit. You do need to look into what kind of categories.
Yeah.
So again, maybe that's another thing, and it's good that we've got young people here because you tend to have a bit more time. I say tend to because I know some of you guys are super busy, but grant applications and all of that's something that is not my gifting. I'll just put it out there. But there could be tens of thousands of dollars that the government and other organisations are putting into organisations that have manpower to run certain events. So I do want to keep that about that for tonight. If you have ideas, come talk to us. Definitely, we want to hear them. But it's hard for other people to join in a conversation on the other side of their computers. But that's just to give you an idea where we're at. It's not a bad thing. We're actually in a really good place. I do believe that the $2,000 per week we'll see really easy at the start of the year, and the second half of the year is really going to bust through and give us the leverage to do heaps more, but also to put some away because we will be looking for a permanent venue or something else down the track. Because right now I don't know how a venue is going to keep going if we continue the growth trend that we've got. So we started off with a team of 38 before we planted, and now on the city we've got something like 54. So we've grown by about very close to 50% in the last 2.5 months, which is great. And we're expecting that initial surge when we launched. But if God continues that growth, which we're going to believe for, and pray and continue to pray into, sitting rooms, great, small. And we're going to have to see what we do about that. So extra finances will allow us to really expand what we see as potential venues for us. So I'm talking really practically. God can completely just open a miraculous door and we'll just be like, thank you, God. So totally love that, but we need to be good stewards of what we do have, and you can't tell the government, hey, we're believing someone's going to give us a building. They're not going to give a rip about your prophecies.
I think on Friday night when you broke it down about the average of how many people are coming to $2,000 a week, and you said the 40 to 400, that really helped me.
Oh, sure.
That might be good to say.
Yeah. So 2,000 per week, with where we're at right now, if we have 50 adults, that works out to each person giving $40 per week. And
if the person earns $400 a week.
Yeah, so that equates to, using the whole idea of the tithe, if you're tithing weekly, if you're earning $400 a week, you're tithing $40, and 50 people are doing that. That's all that 2,000 is going to take. We haven't quite reached 50 tithing adults yet, so right now the average is probably a little bit over that. But right now our average giving per person per week is very close to the $40 per person, which is actually a really healthy range. But that's just to give you an idea of where things are at. It's actually really easy. If we get another 5 tithing people in, we will probably be pushing it a lot past the $2,000 mark. So yeah, that's just to help you guys out. If you've got any questions, we'd love to take them. If you are listening to this on YouTube, talk to us if you have any questions. But over to Beck for a couple of upcoming events.
Cool. So we've recently started talking about our end of year party that will be happening. Woohoo! So that's going to happen December 6th. Which is a Sunday, and it'll be 5 to 7 p.m. at Shelley Foreshore. So yeah, it's just going to be really fun. It's like our end of year celebrating what God's done through Lift this year, and we'll take care of all the food side of things. So we really want to just like bless and say thank you. So it'll be like a make your own dessert thingy, and we'll have a sausage sizzle and drinks and all that kind of stuff. But if you do want to bring something, you can bring a picnic rug or, some sports stuff. Canoes. If you have canoes, please bring them. I love them. That'd be awesome. Second cool event we have coming up in December is Christmas on the Green, which is going to be awesome. Mitch has locked in 2 bands. That's going to give us some live music. So it'll be happening on December 13th, which is also a Sunday. And what we'll be doing is actually closing down the morning, so we can run this event for the community in the evening. So December 13th, 5 to 7 p.m. at Reed Park or Lift Park, depending on how you want to see it.
That's probably going to be about 3:30 to 4ish. Probably 3:30.
Like 12, right?
Yeah, for Mitch it'll be 12. If you like Mitch and you want to spend some quality time with him.
Yes, qualls. Quality
Talking to you, Aaron.
Awesome. So yes, we'll probably be gathering like interest of who can set up closer to the date. Also spreading the word to the community is really important. So aside from live music, we'll be having food, stalls and vans, things like that. Kids novelty games, which will be fun, and we'll be having carols by our very own Lift band. So woohoo, it's going to be a great December.
Yeah, with that, we are just about ready to print our 5,000 flyers like what we did for the carnival. Hopefully, we actually do have a bit more time compared to the carnival to get word out. So we will be having a couple of walks around the town of Vic Park, so stay tuned.
Sweet.
Alright, so completely switching gears. They've got 15 minutes to teach, which is probably not my forte. We'll see how we go. But I think what we're going to talk about today is very practical, and it's something that this concept is something that really, really, really transforms the way that I live my own life as well as how I do my leadership. And this is the whole idea of a difference between working in and working on. I heard this concept first from Andy Stanley, and he was talking about how on a yearly basis he would take a few weeks out just to visit other churches, or even sometimes visit his own campuses, but not have any role, and he would just be kind of floating in like any other person that's attending the church without being involved, just so that he can see and catch the vibe of what's going on. And he said that's so important to just see what's happening. And he said something that was really interesting, because he said one year when he did it, he found out a certain thing. I can't remember what he said it was. I think it was like the friendliness of the atmosphere at North Point Church. And he said he was thinking about it. It's like, wow, this place is so friendly. This is so great. And he started thinking about what makes it so friendly. And he started thinking about it. And he was saying that that's actually something that most people don't do in your own lives and in your own leadership. You don't often take something that is working really well and try to break it down and find out what makes it work. We just like, oh, it worked, cool. And we instead keep looking at the things that are not working well and keep trying to fix all of those things. And we're constantly putting out fires. But he's saying that all things go through wear and tear, they decay. So this friendliness culture, if it was the friendliness culture of the church, would decay one stage. And if they didn't actually have this secret ingredient list of what makes the place so friendly, they would never be able to get it back to that place again. Does it make sense? And this is where the difference of working in and working on actually really comes in. That moments and that it is an investment that we have to take from time to time to stop working in and to start working on. Have I confused anyone so far? All good? And this is something that you actually have to do deliberately. I think there are some people that are weirdly wired that way. Maybe they're a bit more of a dreamer type personality and they like just dreaming up things. But I think most of us, we get caught up in the tyranny of the everyday. You've got these things that need to happen. I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And quite often we see ourselves as trying to keep different plates spinning. I don't know if you heard the analogy of, it's not always about just keep like spinning one plate. It's like spinning a plate, letting it go, and then you go to another plate and you start spinning it. And that's what a lot of us do in our lives. We just go around to different plates and we keep spinning them, and we go into this maintenance of our lives, our Bible reading, our relationships, whatever it is in your leadership, in your influence, We tend to start boxing things up and saying, okay, that's gone well, and I'll put it aside because I need to invest my time and energy into this. Yeah. The problem with that is that all things will decay. And if at one stage you find that so many things are decaying all at the same time, and you're trying to get all of these plates spinning better again, you're going to find yourself in a spot where you're just constantly putting out fires, and everything just comes to a complete standstill. The thing about good leadership is that it needs to have this pioneering spirit and something that says it's not just keeping things at this level, but it's constantly trying to find how can we do one step better. There's a lot of churches that used to be pioneers and they used to be doing amazing stuff. We look back hundreds of years into the Reformation where Martin Luther came out and he revolutionized the whole church world by saying, no, we're not going to listen to tradition, we're going to listen to the Bible. It was fantastic. It changed the way everybody thought. And then somehow down the track, because they stopped working on and they just continued working in, that church, the Lutheran church is now no longer at the cutting edge of the church world. Is actually pulled back a lot, and is actually quite often you might find that in some of the Lutheran churches that they're actually doing the very things that Martin Luther was trying to stand against in legalism and tradition and all of that kind of stuff. And what happens is because you just try to maintain, you don't see the slide because it's gradual, but it is happening. And we got to take the time as leaders in our own lives, in the church setting, whatever setting you find yourself in with influence, and the most prominent one is probably yourself, leading yourself. That's something that everyone has to do. You have to take the time to invest, pull yourself out of the urgent everyday things and think, how am I doing this? What is making this work? Actually be able to articulate what you are doing. And it's a risk, because what happens if I don't do that and that continues to go into free fall? Sometimes you've got to let certain things die in order to let the new come in. Does that make sense? And so we need to learn how to do this working on and not just working in. And many of you in a church setting say that's something that I guess I can talk about quite confidently, being involved for many years now. But let's talk about an example to help you see the difference between working in versus working on. Let's say we notice that the number of people in our small groups has really gone down, and we get really worried about it. What do you think working in that situation looks like? Just throw some ideas out. Mm-hmm. So maybe think practically, what could that look like? Getting more food?
I think it would be like getting a bit desperate and like calling each of them up, like, hey, like, you know, come.
Yeah, and so you put your Asian accent on and then Asian auntie and chase everyone. And that's definitely something you can do. I was thinking like, using that maybe like mail outs. Maybe you do like this full on snail mail out to everyone, or social media or messages and emails, and try to ramp it up again. So that is something that you could do. Another thing I was thinking of is a lot of leaders quite often come to the pastor. I've done that many times to Pastor Joel. It's like, we need to make an announcement out of this. We need to get the word out. But those kind of things can actually take a lot of time. When I was an intern, I used to do so many mail outs, and it takes a whole afternoon, because I used to be an intern at Live City, and it would take a whole afternoon just folding these stupid pieces of paper and slotting them into envelopes and saying, hey, you're using, and it wasn't just me, it was like 4 or 5 of us spending literally 4 or 5 hours. So there's 20 hours worth of putting these letters out because we thought that was the way to get people back in. And while sometimes we do need, there's massive value in working in. If we are not actually doing any work in what we've set up, we're going to absolutely fail. So don't hear me saying that we don't want to work in, but there are times where we need to pull out and go, hang on. Is the problem that people forgot about this? Or is the problem in this small group example? Or is it because our small group system is no longer in line with where people are at? And it takes a lot more risk to pull out and to actually find out what is the root problems maybe. So maybe working on looks like meeting up with a trusted group of leaders and say, hey, why do you think this is going on? Actually getting an opinion out. A lot of leaders, myself included, don't want to hear what people have to say. Why? Because that means putting in change, which is difficult. And there's an investment, there's a cost to those changes. Maybe gathering key leaders to do a brainstorm, that's actually working on. You're investing time instead of doing mail outs, you're getting these people together and saying, okay, what was going to change, and learning how to articulate why we are doing things the way we are, and whether that's actually reaching the goals of what we've set out to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So as we head into 2016 for yourself, this could be a great little thing for you to think on. How are you working on your life? Not just working in, not just getting the money into your bank and getting food into your mouth and doing your daily Bible reading, which is great. You need to continue to work in. Don't quit your job, don't quit your Bible reading plan, don't stop eating. Those are all important. But are you investing in moments where you are actually working on your life? Am I heading the right direction? Or am I just maintaining? Am I actually not doing anything but somehow making myself feel good because I'm just busy all the time? I've been in that place where I'm sitting in the church office and trying to keep myself busy, and then I realized that the work I was doing was completely meaningless. I was like, really? Wow, Pastor Nate, so great and mighty, doing absolutely crap all. And I realized that the higher up you go in leadership, quite often you do less. But why do you do less? Because we want to use your ability to think, your experience and your wisdom to work on instead of working in. Does that make sense? So right now in our church, quite often, with most of us, we are working in. We need to ensure that church is set up, we need to be writing curriculum, we need to be doing all of these things. As we grow and there are more volunteers coming in and there are more tiers of leadership coming in, the higher up you go, the more time you're going to get to learn how to work on. Yeah. And quite often a lot of people, I'm going to cut out the second half of my message. I think this is a good place to camp. But quite a lot of people, that's where they struggle. I've seen so many people, and I haven't articulated it this way before, and maybe this would be really helpful, but some people, as they go up in leadership, they're doing less, and by doing less, they actually get this sense of a loss of value. You don't get me to do that anymore. It's like, you're a leader. I don't need you to pull out the pulpit for me. That other Joe bloke can pull out pulpit. I want you to be working on this. This is far more important. But we get caught up in the tyranny of the everyday, and we give meaning to that everyday struggle and that everyday rush. So much so that sometimes being the guy that looks like you are really the manager and not doing much sometimes those people we need to learn how to work on. Does that make sense? I probably lost you guys at the last bit. So, sorry? Let's camp.
We had him at camp.
I had them at camp. So, yeah, that's something that's really important. Now, there are seasons. And as leaders, we need to be aware of seasons. There are seasons of working really hard. For church life, when it comes to Easter and Christmas, traditionally, that's a working in season. That's like, hey, don't be slacking off. We need to be doing this. And our team probably feel that when they're coming in, volunteering during the week. Is like, all right, let's get straight to this. It's not so much fun and games and being creative and all of that. But there's some of the seasons where we actually need to be, hey, this is not just for you to take a breather, but it's for you to take a step back, to get perspective of what's going on. And if, look, nothing is going wrong, take something that's going right and see if you know why it's working. Why not? You know, some of you guys are doing amazingly in your lives, but maybe the next step for you is to get your secret sauce as to why you've grown so much and to learn how to impart that into the next person. And right, that's so important. Some of us Christians have broken down what's successful in our lives to become this legalistic roadmap, and we just shove it down another person's throat, and it's not really helping them at all. But if we actually truly work out, how did I get to this place? And you can actually use that as a way to help another person find their journey. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't just go around reaching out for all these little tools to help a person work in and help people work on the way that you're learning how to work on. So I know that the end of the year is always a time of reflection, and that's great. Use this moment when Christmas comes and goes and you're looking through the year. What are some stuff that works brilliantly? What is some stuff that you could be doing better in? How are you going to work on those things? And maybe don't. One of the things that Beck and I have done, deliberately, but also the benefits are a little bit by accident. We didn't know how great these things would be, but we've chosen to do very little with Lift compared to what some other churches have set out to do right from the start. We've actually really pulled right back to do some really base, minimal stuff. But it's really allowed us to be deliberate and to be working on what Lift looks like. And I think we've developed quite a strong sense of what we want and the culture that we want to set, because we've actually taken the time to articulate and think through what this looks like. Yeah. But if we had a youth group to run, if we had a women's ministry, if we had a retirement village ministry, we had all of these things all happening all at the same time, we would get caught up in the working in. And so maybe sometimes in your life you need to be working out what's the most important thing that you need to be working on. Does it make sense? I'm not saying, hey, you need to work on this, get 20 things into your list, and then you just start working your list out. Does that make sense? Yeah. Actually, what is it next year for you that you believe God's calling you to really work on? I think that's linking to what we were talking about on Sunday. What's the God word for your next season?
Really? Yeah.
If you know that God word and you know the thing that's highlighting that you need to work on, it could change everything. So just to finish off, me personally this year, and I have done really badly at this, I'll be the first to admit, my word for this year from God was to abide. I needed to learn how to rest a lot more in Him and to get that closeness happening. And immediately at the start of the year, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And it was doing them all really well. But halfway through the year, probably even before then, I lost track of that. And right now it's already in November, and I'm like, oh man, I've wasted about 6 months of not actually doing what God's been trying to show me. And so it's really easy to start off really well, but to understand that it's not just putting a list of to-dos together. It's not just about getting yourself busy, but it's actually about understanding why you're doing what you're doing. It's about understanding what is it that God's trying to accomplish through this season. And so for yourself, working on difficult, it means seeing the black stuff in your life. It means seeing the things that you're not so good about. It means being honest. Man, I wasn't very good at that. And sometimes it hurts, but sometimes it's good hurt so that you can continue to grow. I've gone off notes and I've gone on bunny trails, but I hope that this is helpful. We need to find a balance So I'm not saying don't work in, find a balance of working in and working on. Both are important. We tend to lean into the working in, and that's why I'm focusing quite heavily on working on. But if we find that balance in our life, I think that's when growth really happens. For you, for your ministry, for your workplace, for your families, for your relationships, working on, so important. Cool. All right, we're going to end there. Thanks everyone for listening. See you later.